Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode with the beautiful Tamara Simon from Take Another Look. Tamara, thank you so much for joining me today. Would love for you just to share a bit about yourself and your business.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for having me, and really looking forward to our chat. So I'm a small business speaker, author, and coach. I'm affectionately known as the Bob the Builder for small business. Can she fix it? Yes, she can. So I help business owners navigate the challenges in their small business by helping them solve those frustrating problems, simplify the overwhelming systems, and support them in times of uncertainty and confusion. So they build a simple, profitable business they actually love, because that's the whole point of it. So I'm driven by that. I've had my business for, it's going to be going on 2002, got to do that, 23 years this year. And I always describe my Thank you. Thank you. I always describe my business journey as the board game Snakes and Ladders. It's definitely not like this, as everyone tells you in the beginning. The reality sets in. Yes, and I very much love my sport. So that comes into my content and presentations because there's so much synergies between sport and small business that we can take lessons from.
I love that. A little unique point of difference. So, Tamara,
Yes.
you've mentioned that you're known as Bob the Builder for small business. Can you tell us the story behind that nickname and how it relates to your work?
Well, I think, I've had my business for a long time, and certainly trying to find, what's that thing? And because I have experience across all facets of business, I would call myself a generalist in that way. And so, you're a little bit of that one-stop shop. So clients come to me and audiences ask, questions about their managing their people and their systems and themselves, and all of that sort of stuff. So it was really with my business coaches and also a media person, actually, where she went, well, you solve problems. And yeah, that's what I do. That's my superpower. And she said, well, aren't you the Aussie Bob the Builder for small business? And so we sort of tinkered with it, and that's sort of how it came about. But you need something that people can get. So, if you're struggling to solve problems or challenges in your business, then that's my superpower. That's what I want people to come to me for. And that's usually the strategy. So
Yeah, wonderful. So, what inspired you to start your business and what gap in the market were you aiming to fill?
none. So I am, so I never thought I would be a business owner. And I'm very much what I call in my book, the reluctant small business owner, because what I find is that most people aren't the entrepreneur. There's certainly some people that have always known this is what they wanted to do, and they've had businesses, kids, and all that sort of stuff. But for most of us, we either gained an opportunity, which was my story. We just decided to. Maybe you're part of a family business. Maybe you've looked at your boss and gone, yeah, I can do that better than you. And that's where most of us, fall into this world of small business. But I was CEO of a incorporated association, and I'd been in the vocational education and training world for quite a while in a whole range of roles. And I was really just given this opportunity of training people in business management and things like that. And I was looking for something different. So it's, finish one job and then overnight, small business owner. As the consultant and things like that. So I really just fell into it. And then, over the years, I certainly have a very strong niche and background in registered training organizations. I've written the second book for them and others. So there's a lot of niche there. But I've certainly worked, with other niches. At one stage before the GFC, I was working with lots of building designers, and then the GFC came and went smack, as they do. So yeah, I've sort of floated around in a variety of roles. And as I said, certainly that snakes and ladders, you have to be able to, pivot and do different things. And my business has certainly, gone through a lot of machinations over those years. And most of the time I branded under business names. At one stage I had 2 websites and 2 branding for different audiences. But a few years ago, I went, yeah, we need to step into my own space. And sometimes I think we avoid that when we're the brand, So, yeah, so I went through, what did I really want to do? After I had my business for 20 years, it was really, well, what do I want the next lot to sort of look like, and what work didn't I want to do anymore, and where did I want to position myself? And that's really been the evolution to where we are now.
Yeah, I think the snakes and ladders is a great analogy, because I think
Yep,
that's just business in general, isn't it? For
it is.
every
Yeah,
business, like it's never just a rising tide. Like it's always up and down, up and down. I often describe it as a roller coaster, but yeah, snakes and ladders is another awesome one too. So you have been in business for over 20 years. How would you say the landscape has changed since you first started?
I personally think so. I'm a service-based business, which a lot of your, providers are and things like that. And I certainly feel with the influx of not only 24/7 email, but particularly social media for a service-based business, and then particularly if the brand is you, like it is in my case, I think it's a lot harder. I think it's a lot harder marketing. If we take years ago where we just got mail once or twice a day, some of us can remember that, morning and afternoon mail in businesses and things like that. We went to meetings, maybe there was some follow up, we just waited till the next meeting. We if we were out, we came back to the office and got messages, or if we were the owner, we just listened to our messages on our mobile phone. So I think a lot of that has changed. I mean, remember the days, where the phone box, and all the things, like kids these days wouldn't even know what that's like, but you had to find the phone box. You had to have a look in your notepad to see if you had that person's phone number. Then you had to find the coins, then, and do all those type of things. So I think this, whilst technology, and I'm a big fan of that, but I'm very much a pen and paper girl, and will be to, the day I die. I think technology is good, but it's taken control of us, and we're certainly seeing that in, people struggling with this 24/7. I mean, I'm very good at putting up, if you like, some boundaries and expectations around that. And I think as business owners now, we are choosing, I think, and I think this is where we've got to take back the control of, well, just because the emails are there, generally speaking, you're not going to lose work if you get back to them within a day, because it's not like they're just waiting for your response, right? So, I think that world of tech and this culture of 24/7 just needs to be broken a little bit. And I then also think that marketing, particularly of trying to cut through the noise and how much content we need to be creating as part of communities and all of that, because you've got to build your community. You can't sell until you build a community, and you need to be doing that to help them. But years ago, oftentimes that profiling was, maybe you wrote an article in a magazine, you might have done a letter drop, different things like that. So, yes, I think you can set up much quicker and much cheaper, probably. Costs of websites and, other things like that are a lot more cost effective now than when I first started. But I think the other demands is, there's just so much coming at us, and trying to work through that is a little bit tricky.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's part of the, I was talking about this the other day to somebody that, they say the number of touch points until you
Yeah,
actually get a sale, or until you actually get a client, that's changed
yeah,
from something that used to be about 7 touch points to like,
correct. Yeah,
and
yeah,
like I say, it's probably that getting through all of that noise, we're
yeah.
just being exposed to so much with social media
Yes,
that
yes.
it takes a lot longer, doesn't it? And a lot more effort.
Very much so. And I think, I think there's certainly power in, you need to see someone a couple of times and things like that. But you're right, it did used to be 7, so if your website was, and that was a big part of that, profile piece that people would look at, they'd check you out there first and all that. But now it's like, even we need to see you a few times more on social media. We know post pandemic that people are taking longer to buy and make that buying decision. And then now add in cost of living pressures and things like that as well. So there's so many other pieces which makes it difficult. And certainly if that impacts on cash flow, it's other challenges that owners are having to navigate that we didn't necessarily have before.
Yeah. And now add a cyclone into the mix for those of us in
Oh,
in
exactly,
Queensland.
exactly.
Will no
Yeah,
doubt,
that's right.
yeah, yeah, results from that. So many
Yes.
small business owners struggle with turning their expensive hobbies into profitable businesses. What are the
Yeah.
most common mistakes that you see, and how can they avoid them?
So I talk about lots in my book, but to me, it's really around building your business people systems, right? So I really talk about 5 foundation bricks. And the first 2 that I talk about is about you as the business owner, that you need to embrace that role, right? So I don't call myself an entrepreneur. I call myself a small business owner, and I wear that as a badge of honor. But we need to embrace entrepreneurial thinking as part of that. But part of that embracing that role is, we have to step up into all of those things and make sure that we do know our numbers, that we are where, I get that we're all wearing multiple hats, but it's understanding where our time needs to be as part of that, and making sure that we're not, delegating responsibility is fine, but sometimes we abdicate it as well. So I think that the first thing is that we've made this brave decision, and absolutely is brave to be a small business owner, but we've got to understand that there's more that comes with that than just doing the stuff that we like to do. We have to get good at sales and marketing. We have to know our numbers. We have to be building systems and all that sort of stuff. So that's usually the first thing that I look at, is trying to give owners some confidence and a little bit of tough love of going, well, it is your business. And certainly I've had conversations with people where they need someone to actually run the business so that they can actually do the bit they love. And I don't see any issue with that, right? Or they've tried it for a while and then gone, it's just not for me. But sometimes they keep flogging a dead horse and go, no, no, no. It's okay if it hasn't worked,
Yeah.
but that's a really hard decision that they need to work through. So all of us have to, move from this, as I said, reluctant, business owner, where we go, I don't need to know about that. And there's only me, so I don't have to do X, or, head in the sand going, it's all good, it's all good. So when it's maybe not. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we need to be looking at our productivity, and we need to focus our time, right? Because I'm sure people say to you as well, magic wand question, you can fix one thing, I need more time. But the reality is, we know, is that we've all got the same amount of time. We can't find it. I'm very big on language, right? So I just need to find more time. Well, you can't find it. It's not lost like a sock. We've got to create space. And they're usually the first things that I'm doing, both with audiences and coaching clients, because I can't talk about any of the other stuff until I've rejigged how they're spending their time, because we've got to find it and recreate it in a way that it's actually focused, making sure that they're not, starting the day with emails. And I know people probably go, what? Well, no, we have to be starting with what's most important. So at least then, if the day doesn't go as we expect, we've done that most important thing that's putting us on our pathway for our yearly goals or things like that. But unless I can work with an owner about their time, I can't talk to them about anything else, because it's too hard, because you've got to create that space. And then once we've done that, we can then look at those other foundation bricks, right? So when we can look at profitability, which is really around what I call designing your money train. I don't like the word sales and marketing. It just doesn't sit well with me. So I call it my money train, right? And we need to board it every single day. But it's got to be targeted. We've got to move past this idea that everyone is our client or our customer. We can help everyone, and I'm very much driven by service, but it's the business thing of saying, I need to understand, and certainly for your clients and audiences, what's the speciality as that NDIS provider, right? Are you across a number of sectors? Do you just work in, particular specialties and things like that? Because that's where you need to stay. Because this weird thing happens, that if we start talking to our ideal customer and client in our social media, in our marketing and all that, what happens is other people come in and say, oh, can you help me with this? And then we make a choice of whether we, want to branch into maybe a different industry sector or whatever it might be. But we have to understand and define what our ideal client is, because until we do that, the profitability won't necessarily come, because we're just throwing mud at the wall and hoping something will stick, as part of that. I think certainly too that this is where that abdication of responsibility comes into play, right? Because we're talking about our financial numbers. And I've had too many owners where I go, so, how's everything going? Yeah, turnover is really good. Okay, what's your biggest problem? Cash flow. Okay, so something's, not adding up, because they're not, looking at how much it actually costs to run the business, how much profit margin they need, because the answer is, well, I've got enough cash I've looked at my bank account tomorrow, I've got cash. No. So let's not get caught up in the turnover hype, which we can, because if turnover is great but profit's not, you're still running an expensive hobby, right? So we need to be making sure that we understand our numbers. And if you've got help with someone, maybe a bookkeeper, an accountant, that's great, but you need to understand what they're giving you. Because at the end of the day, and this is about embracing that role, is I need to be across everything, even when I've got staff helping me. So we need to understand the numbers as part of that. And so once we sort of go, okay, I've stepped up into my role, I've rejigged my time and stuff like that. I've then looked at what my business is. I'm not being everything to everyone. Then we can start looking at our people, which is the fourth brick, and looking at how we guide their team. And that initially might be a team of one, right, where we're wearing sort of multiple hats and all those type of things. But certainly if you've got staff, be it, contractors or things like that, I very much have changed this language from managing teams to guiding them, because I'm big on, you need to be the coach of your team, right? But we need to give them the tools to succeed. And that's systems and clarity about role, and not just lumping things on and on and on and on and on, which can certainly happen in your sector. Seen it firsthand as part of that, And so then the last brick is about performance, and it's really about how do we then grow the business. And that's where you need systems as your foundation. You've got to get that knowledge out of your head, down into simple procedures. And everyone goes, oh, I know that, but, they then don't do it. And even with using just your phone and hit record, and if you tell a staff member, this is what I want you to do, that's at least part of a system. But this all, all the bricks interrelate and things like that, but it all comes down to how you are looking at your time. Because too often, and certainly myself as well, right, is that we are willing to spend time to troubleshoot, to fix mistakes, to put out fires, but we're not willing to actually solve the problem and solve it once and for all as sort of part of that. So, there's mistakes in all of those things, but they're probably the common ones that I see initially that we've got to hit with small business owners.
Yeah, no, yes, there's so many pieces to the puzzle, isn't there? It's not a one-time fix it.
No, that's exactly right.
So you have talked about solving frustrating problems for business owners. What's one of the biggest aha moments where you have helped a client achieve something?
Let's pause for a moment to talk about resources that can help you scale your NDIS business. Have you downloaded my free NDIS Business Growth Blueprint yet? It's a step-by-step guide designed to help you simplify compliance, streamline your operations, and grow your business with confidence. And if you're looking for more personalised support, my Bestie in Business membership is exactly what you need. You'll get group coaching, virtual co-working sessions, and tailored strategies to help you thrive in the NDIS space. You can find the links to both the freebie and the membership in the show notes. Now let's get back to the episode of NDIS Business Breakthrough with Vanessa Norman.
If I think about one of my coaching clients, so she had a staff member that had been with her pretty much from day dot, and the business now has grown a fair bit, and she was in the midst of that growing pains, right? Because that's what happens, right? Things that used to work when it was you and maybe you and a couple of other people, once, customers come up, clients come up, staff come up, things start to break, right? And that's just what happens. But we were finding that this one staff member was very, this is what I do. And look, she was a good performer, but what we were finding is that was because it was all in with her, right? And I said, well, we have to sort of work through this because it was causing problems with the rest of the team. They were finding that they were walking around on eggshells and all that sort of stuff. And so I was coaching my client about, and fantastic client, right? Fantastic boss and everything like that. But we were talking about leadership and sort of daring to lead and stuff. And so it was conversations around that. And I said, you need to give yourself permission to lead, because what happens in the beginning, and particularly in small business, is that, everyone's your friend. Like, as the team, you bring people in and it's very much that friend or family and stuff like that. And that's what small business, that's one of the best things about it. But sometimes those lines can get blurred, particularly, where people go, oh, personal, and it crosses over and that. And this was really, and it's not through anyone's fault or blame or anything. It's just what happens. I've seen it so many times. But you have to get to a point where you've actually got to reset things. And this was really the conversation. And I said, you have to be the leader here and have this tough conversation with someone and go, okay, let's really find out what's going on. And she said, it was the wording of you said to me, I need to give myself permission to lead. And she said, once I got that, she sort of shifted really into that strategic role-based type thing. And sometimes it can just be as simple as that. We just need that confidence or someone else to be that sounding board to go, like, you're doing a great job, but you just need this little bit. And you have to have the confidence. But a lot of times we need someone behind us going, you can do this. You can do this. You've got it in you.
Yeah, it's okay to have a difficult conversation.
Absolutely. Because, and I think, I years ago, and I keep replaying it, right? I've read this blog about, I don't like conflict, right? Because that's what most people say to me. If they don't want to have conversations with staff, and I'm usually being that little mediator or something like that, right? Because generally small business owners won't address stuff when they happen straight away. And that's when you've got to do it. That's when you've got to do it. But often it doesn't happen, not because they don't want to initially, it's because they're just doing so many things. It just, and then things escalate and all that sort of stuff. But they'd say, oh, I don't really like conflict, Tamara. And I go, who does? Who wakes up and goes, I love a bit of conflict in every day? I mean, most people, there's probably some people that's, that's how they do it. But for most of us, we don't like doing that. I'm sure you've done as well.
Yeah.
We don't like having those conversations, but you have to.
Yeah.
But we think it's going to be worse than what it is. And I've had different circumstances. I've had staff screaming at me and, different. So it can get bad. But if you deal with stuff straight away, that's where those little things, and that's why it's really important to set expectations and boundaries and all those type of things. And if they've fallen away a bit because you've gotten busy, just reset those things as part of that. So that's certainly one example of, we need to give ourselves permission to lead when we're the owner. And that's okay. Because it's your business. It's actually not your staff's business. And it's not your customer's business. It's actually yours. So how you want that to run is really up to you as part of that.
Yeah. So managing and growing a team can be hugely overwhelming.
Yep.
What advice do you give to business owners who feel like their business is running them instead of the other way around?
So my first thing is you need to stop, of which then is we can't afford to stop tomorrow. And I go, it's usually when I pull out Dr. Phil and go, well, how's that working for you? Right? Because it's not. Right? If we're constantly, we know the fable of the tortoise and the hare. If we're constantly the hare and letting everyone and everything run our business, not only will it burn ourselves out and overwhelm us and all that sort of stuff, but it's not serving us, because you're just spending, as I said, that troubleshooting and fixing mistakes and all that. It's just wasted energy. So you have to stop. A lot of times clients will say to me, oh, I'm thinking about putting someone else on. And because I know systems are the foundation, then we have the conversation. Oh, what do you want them to do? Oh, well, stop. Because if you can, you need to be looking at what is that role going to do and have absolute clarity about that and have documented systems. So you actually don't bring someone into a mess.
Yeah.
right? Because oftentimes what we do, particularly in small business, is someone leaves or it gets really busy. Oh, I'll just get someone, and we get a warm body, right? Because the urgency of getting the help. And I absolutely get that, right? But if we haven't actually thought about what the role really should be, if we haven't stopped and looked and said, well, is this the way the organizational structure should be moving forward or not?
Yeah.
Is what we're doing now actually working, or is it working because we're a team of 3 and we're really good people?
Mm.
And that's often what can happen, is that the business is going well because you've got good people that can cross over roles and do all those type of things. But as you grow, you've actually got to look and say, well, what does the business actually look like? What does the organizational chart look like? My name might be in a couple of those things, but unless you've got clarity about those roles, that can be really frustrating for a new staff member, who comes in all excited, and then all of a sudden you're going, no, don't do that, and don't do that, and I didn't want you doing that, and all of those type of things. So if you're growing, my suggestion certainly is, where you can, and I get that it's hard, but you have to put the brakes on, because otherwise you'll hit this tipping point and you'll fall off the cliff, and so will your team, and they'll just start to fracture more and more, because there's more and more work, there's more and more things to do, and everyone's at breaking point. And a lot of that is because some of those systems, or people are doing duplicate roles and not really realizing it, all of those sort of things. I mean, you don't have to stop forever, but even if
just to get
stop for a day or two to look at it.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
very true. Yeah. So you emphasize simplifying overwhelming systems.
Yeah.
What are some quick wins that business owners can implement right away?
I'm not a personal fan of policies, right? I'm not. And the reason for that is because for a lot of policies that I've seen across businesses, they're very government speak, right? Because maybe people have bored me. But we see a lot of the scope of the policy is this, the purpose of the, and I go, just tell me what I need to know, right? Because the policy itself, the concept of it, is really about just information. The critical bit is the how, which is the procedure. And the more that can be a flow chart with links to templates like checklists and things like that, the better off you're going to be. So I'm big on that stuff. But I don't throw out the information that's in policies. I just rework it, right? So I'm very much that you develop what I call handbooks, okay? So if we use HR policies, they're usually good ones, right? And it takes a while for people to read and go, what have I actually got to do? Does this relate to me? All that sort of stuff, okay? So I work off this concept called handbooks. And if we think about it, so the first handbook will be either the staff handbook, organizational handbook, whatever word works for you. I generally say staff handbook. What I say to owners is, okay, what we want to put in this is everything every single person needs to know. Right. And that can be from the floor plan. That's going to be all of your organizational chart. It's going to have a 1-page summary, hopefully, about what key functions each person does, so they know who to go to. So if you think as a new person, that's how I build it, right? Floor plans, things like, on a Friday, we go to this place for lunch. We've got a footy tipping competition, whatever it might be. And then we add in all that HR stuff into one place, which tells me about payroll, tells me about induction, tells me about performance reviews, tells me about termination, resignation, leave, all of that stuff. And with links, here's the leave form, here's this, here's that. And if we think of it like that and say, what does everyone need to know? That's your staff handbook. And that also means too, if things change, you've only got to change it once. You don't have to maybe change it in 6 or 7 policies because it appears, in different places. Okay, so if we think about that and go, okay, staff handbook, that's what everyone needs to know. Vision of the business, all the things that we do, all that stuff. And then go, okay, so the next bit probably is then going to be what I call position handbooks. So there's going to be a CEO handbook, and there's going to be a marketing manager handbook, and there's going to be maybe a HR manager handbook, and there's going to be an admin handbook. and whatever. And I know some people might be listening going, well, I don't have a HR manager. I don't have a marketing manager. They go, yeah, you do. It's called you.
Yeah.
So you're in that role. But you think in positions.
Yes.
Right? Even if your name is in everything, that's how businesses start. But we think it's the concept that Michael Gerber talks about in his book, The E-Myth. Right? So systems are your foundations, but you don't build them around people, you build them around positions.
Break off that position, as you grow and you.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's exactly it, right? It enables you to delegate. So if you think about it, you sort of go, okay, here's what everyone needs to know. And then I've got an admin handbook and all that they need to know and stuff like that. And then finance and all those things. And you're right, Vanessa, it's about what can you break off and what can you delegate as part of those. But if we think like that, it enables us to, I haven't got my hats here, but we wear so many hats, right? So conversations I'm always having with coaching clients is, okay, I need you to take off the CEO hat and put on your owner hat because I want to talk to you at that level.
Yeah.
Right? And people go, you'd be amazed at what it does to your thinking immediately about it. Right? So for owners that wear all those different management hats, I say to them, go to the cheap shop or whatever, and then just put the labels on them, because not only does it enable you to go, right, if I'm just wearing the business manager hat or business development or whatever it is, finding customers, I just need to be thinking like that. And then I've got to take that off and then go, right, now I need to be in the finances. Okay, I need my green hat because, I always use green because it's money. Whatever stuff works for you, but it enables you then to be thinking about, what does this position actually do? What does it do now? And what do I want it to do in the future? And how can I start chipping away, documenting that, versus it's all too hard, there's just too much to do. And I go, yeah, we just need to break this down bit by bit. And you start with one position. If they're by themselves, I always say, what do you think might be the one that you want help in first that you're going to outsource? For most people, it's a bookkeeper. That's usually the starting point, right? Then they'll get admin. Okay, so let's build that, right? Because you can't just say to a bookkeeper, oh, I've got MYOB or zero, off you go. You need to have stuff in there about the reports. You need to have a chart of accounts. You need to have stuff in there about how you code expenses and things like that. Because the more that you can do that, they will then come in and build it further. But you've got to get that stuff and guidance out of your head first.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And it's like you say, in the beginning, we might be wearing 10 different hats, but as businesses grow, we want to take some of those hats off and hand them over to other people. And it might be based on where your skill sets lie in terms of, okay, this is not my jam, or, you don't like it, or that kind of thing. So it's definitely looking at the long-term picture as opposed to just the right now.
Oh, look, very much so, right? And so I developed a handout. It's what I call, what's your sweet spot, right? Because I believe every single person, staff, owners, etc., all should be working in our sweet spot 80% of every single day, which is doing the work that you love and that you're good at. Because there's always going to be stuff we have to do that we go, oh gosh, right? For me, it's social media in different ways, right? It's not my jam, but the writing of it's okay. It's just all the other stuff, right? But we need to know what that is, because we assume so much, right? So if we can work through this activity and stuff, and I'm certainly happy, Vanessa, I can easily send that to you if you would like to upload that, or if your audience reaches out to you, they can easily just sort of complete it, because oftentimes, until we've looked at it, because we're wearing so many things, we just go, I'm everything. I'm that chief everything officer. That's what my title is. But it's not moving forward what you really want to do, right? There'll be some stuff in saying, like for me, speaking, facilitating, coaching, that's my jam. I'm in an absolutely happy place as part of that. But the more that we can work out what our sweet spot is, then we can be looking at, okay, well, what's the plan of how I can slowly delegate those other things, and what might that look like? Doesn't have to happen tomorrow, but it can happen sort of, down the track as part of that. So sort of happy to do that. I'm just wondering too, can I just share one more story about the hats?
Of course.
So it just always comes to me. So I was working with the husband-wife team, and they had a building designer business. And I was working with the wife who was the business manager. And I was entrenched in the business and stuff. Anyway, I was just watching her and seeing, going, what's going on? So what used to happen at morning tea and afternoon tea, she would leave her desk, walk down the corridor into the kitchen, turn the kettle on, make sure that everything was all sorted and everything, and come back. It's really, oh, yeah, isn't that nice? But then I just kept watching this. What is going on here? Anyway, I said to her, I said, can you just explain what you do? She goes, oh, I always put the kettle on for the boys, for smoko and all that. And I said, okay. I said, I've got a question for you. I said, if someone else was in your role as business manager, would they be doing that? And she went, no. And I said, right. I said, so you're doing it because you're the owner and the mother hen, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
She went, yeah. And I said, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I said, but the productivity side of things, and yes, it might only be 10 or 15 minutes, but it all adds up, right? 10 or 15 minutes every day adds up to over, hours and hours and all that sort of stuff. But it's the clarity about which role is it.
Mm-hmm.
So we really solved this by, okay, let's stop that happening. And the boys actually, all the staff, and they were male at the time. So all the staff said, you guys are close enough. I'm sure you can put a kettle on. It'll be fine. But what we said to her was she went and got a hat and it had owner on it. And so when she wanted to do it,
yeah,
she put her owner hat on and walked down and, oh, yeah, right, the owner's doing that. And it just is this little shift of going, which role am I in? Which hat am I wearing now? And it enables things to flow a lot easier.
Yeah. No, good story. Like that one.
It's always the little stuff. It's the little stuff.
Yeah, it definitely is. So I would love to know what your take on AI in small business is. Is it a tool for simplification, or do you think it sometimes adds another layer of complexity?
So I'm definitely not the right person to ask, purely because I haven't utilized it, right? So for a couple of reasons. So yes, I've done a bit in ChatGPT and things like that. But as I'm a author as well, I don't use it. I don't put my own content in there because it actually can then go out into the ether. And I'm certainly finding that particularly speaking organizations are asking how much of your presentation has been done by AI. Oh, and I'm very much going, yeah. So I'm very much going, it's all me. Good, bad, or ugly, it's all me as part of that. So, but I think it's like any tech. The challenge that I've got around AI is there's so much out there, and I'm not seeing where, okay, if I'm a small business owner and I work in this industry and do X, Y, and Z, what are the 3 that I should be embracing? We just seem to be getting a lot of either esoteric answers of, oh, you should all embrace, AI and use ChatGPT, rather than specifics. Or there's so many specifics, I then go, I don't have time to look at that. So I've got a couple of tech gurus in my world, and I've really just been looking at, things that they suggest in webinars. And look, I'm very much on my L plates. It's probably a bit like social media. I took a long time to really embrace it. So look, I think it certainly can help us. And there's lots of things. Like I was doing a Zoom with a colleague talking to me about a new email platform that I'm going to move to. And when she sent me the video link, the app that went with Zoom was called, I think it's called Fathom, and it creates all the notes. Yes. And I went, oh, I didn't know about that. That's pretty cool. And it looks like it's a subscription thing or something like that. But again, if you don't know, so there's probably lots that can occur. And I'm sure there's ways then to simplify those things. But I personally am just not quite seeing there still seems to be so much discovery that the business owner has to do to find out which is the best one for them. And I'm a bit going, can you just give me some solutions? Yeah. And, even for myself to give to clients, like that one, I'm going to put out to my community, go, hey, did you know about this? Didn't know about it? That's the struggle I've got with it a bit at the moment. because, unless if your business has gotten to that massive growth point where you've sort of got that big team and stuff, I think then you've got time to do it. But if you're really small, my business is I'm making choices. It doesn't mean my productivity is probably down a little bit. Yeah, it probably is. But it still seems so new to me that I'm not an early adopter of tech.
Yeah.
As I said, love my pen and paper. So yeah, I'm still a bit watch this space, but I'm sure there's some good stuff in it.
Oh,
But I
swear by it.
yeah. Oh, okay. Well, then we need to have a different conversation. You tell me the ones that I need and stuff like that.
No,
So,
definitely, it's something I teach in my program.
Yeah, nice.
Because I'm also somebody who is very much from the point of view of give me a blank piece of paper to start from scratch, and I struggle.
Yeah.
But give me something that's already written and ask me to edit it and make it my own. I can do that. So that's where it's been game changing for me in that regard, that I can sort of give some dot points and it can create something, and then I can go in and edit it and make it my own. Yeah. And for social media, absolute game changer. So, especially those kinds of things like yourself that you don't particularly enjoy doing can really help shorten time and make things a little bit simpler for you. So I use ChatGPT, the paid version, so it's all secure, and I do use the Fathom in Zoom too. I think it's actually free in the paid version of Zoom, essentially. Like it's just a button.
Oh, that's what I got. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Excellent.
Yeah. Because that's absolutely great, isn't it? Just get automatically emailed some notes afterwards, and you can pass that along to your clients. And
it was astonishing how detailed it was, and to the level I just went, that's where, and see, that to me is like, that's what I'm looking for, stuff like that. But it's interesting you say about a blank piece of paper, right? Because it is absolutely true. So when I talk to people about systems, often the owners will say, well, I just told them to, my staff to do it as they go. And I say, well, firstly, that won't work for two reasons. The first is they are too busy doing the task to actually stop and interrupt that. And the second is that they're doing it by habit. So unless you actually disrupt it and do a cognitive break in it, they actually don't know what they're doing, because it's by habit a lot of times, right? And you're exactly right. The blank piece of paper, people don't know where to start. Whereas if I say, okay, so phone call comes in, then what happens? So I'm the prompter to get the stuff out of people's heads. But you're right, they show a piece of paper, don't know how to do it, but have the conversation to get the guts of what's really going on. But you have to do that separate them. Yeah, you have to do it separate to the task. But that's critical to understand about how we actually learn and recall things and develop systems and stuff like that. Yeah.
See, that's another thing that I love. I have a team of VAs, so I do a lot of, when I'm doing something that I'm wanting to pass along to them, I will screen record it and send them the recording, which also can then be put into, AI and recreate that into my written SOPs.
Yeah, nice.
So based on what I've talked about. So I don't have to actually sit there and type up a set of SOPs. It's done for you based on, the recording of a video. So
and like years ago, I used to be that person that was, doing screenshots in Word, and then you copy and you've got arrows here. It is so much easier now with, as you said, screen chat, voice, using the voice recorder on your phone. So it can be a lot easier than people think. And that's where they should be starting, just to get something down, because then it will get refined. But the first bit is you've just got to get it down first, and it's so much easier. Yeah.
And I just had this discussion actually with my clients earlier today. I said, don't wait for everything to be perfect.
Oh, no such thing.
You don't hold off on going and networking and finding clients because your website's not perfect yet. Like, let's still get out there and be seen, and know that, okay, our website is a work in progress or kind of thing. Yeah,
absolutely. There's no such thing as perfection, is my view. And you've just got to get that balance between constant change, right? Within a couple of weeks, we're on version 21, and it just slow down a little bit, let things settle, both staff and procedures and customers and all of that. But you just got to start. Absolutely. you know. So, and to me, I always say to people, just block out 15 minutes a day, because that's an hour and a quarter you weren't working on your systems and building those, you know, brick by brick last week. And then eventually you'll build up to, you know, hopefully 90-minute blocks or something like that. But just start with 15 minutes a day. And you just pick one position and you just start there and you keep going until that's done. And then you move to the next one.
No, great advice.
Yeah.
So when it comes to systems,
Yep.
many business owners resist that change.
Yes.
So how do you encourage them to embrace new processes without feeling overwhelmed?
So generally, it's not working anyway. So, you know, right? So I always say to people, systems are just about change. That's all they are, right? But they are the bricks, they are the foundation, they are everything as part of that. I believe there's a system in everything, you just have to find it. It's even how you answer the phone, it's what your email signature look like. Everything's a system, you know, and it's just weird people like me that always think in terms of checklists and stuff like that, right? It just comes a lot easier to me as part of that. So, you know, if I give you an example, you know, a lot of times clients, particularly if they've got a team, will get me to come in and fix someone. Can you sort that person out tomorrow? Sure. Yeah. If that's my way in, that's okay, right? But I know that 90% of the issues is because the systems aren't there, right? There's lack of clarity about the role, the documentation of simple systems aren't there, or they're there, but they're not working because it's too, you know, all of that stuff, right? So that's where you can show people and say, well, it's actually not this, let's not blame this person. And let's also not blame the system, because again, we've got to give people tools for success. But if there's nothing or very little, makes it a little bit hard. Oh, but I told them tomorrow. Yeah, how good's your memory? Like, that's part of that. You know, so to me, my, you know, approach with clients is very much listening. But I know what that solution is going to be as part of that. Yeah. And generally what I find is when we've done the change management as part of that process, because we've got to reset boundaries and expectations and clarity of roles and all that stuff, I usually, you know, that person they thought was a problem child generally isn't. It's the other person who's been hiding under a rock, getting away with a lot of stuff. That the staff are going, yeah, can you sort them out?
Yeah.
You know, part of that process. But, you know, it's this reality. If nothing changes, nothing changes. But we need to support people through that, but show them the way through it, because generally what they're doing isn't working as well as what they want. So we've got to move as part of that. But yes, the resistance. So I look at fun ways that I can show people really simple systems and go, oh, look, we can use that and that, you know, tools for interruption or whatever it might be as well. You got to get those quick wins as part of it, because then everyone comes on that journey with you.
Yeah. So as you and I both know, small business ownership can be a really lonely ride. What mindset shifts do business owners need to thrive instead of just surviving?
So we talked about it before, but it is thinking, you know, embracing that entrepreneurial thinking. You've got to be upskilling yourself in the areas that you're not good at, right? In terms of small business. So I'm sure yourself, Vanessa, as well, you know, I'm in small business networks as part of that. I subscribe to Inside Small Business, you know, Koshi's Business Builders, Small Business Association. So there's stuff like that. I'm reading books all the time, right? I don't like reinventing the wheel, you know, and again, this is that bit of going, but I don't have time to. And I go, how can you not? Right? I would prefer to learn from someone who is ahead of me on the track and find out what mistakes, right? I'm always seeking people that are further on the journey to myself, because they've made mistakes or they've got wisdom, you know, and whether I was a coach or not, I would say invest in a business coach. That's when your business, because, you know, even if your business is going well, you know, I've got lots of clients where I'm really just that sounding board once a month. You know, others that work with me more regularly, I'm sure like yourself, you're just there to provide that sounding board. And as I say to them, I want you to talk to me instead of taking it home to family, right? Because we need to be talking business with business people. You know, family support us in other ways, but a lot of times they're not, you know, they haven't been a small business owner. So we've got to talk business with business people. But we need someone to either tell us we're on the right track, let us download and just go. It's just, clients will come to me initially go, I don't even know where to start, Tamara. I just, I'm at that point. Okay, so let's have a look. Right? What if you just do this bit? And then they go, okay, now I know what the next step is. Okay, so just do that. And then we talk about the next step.
Yeah.
Right? Because if we talk too far, we get back into overwhelm.
Exactly.
That's why I've got a coach, someone to just go, what? They do for me what I do for clients as you do for clients.
Yeah.
We're there as that sounding board support, but we're there to provide strategic advice. We're there to provide solutions to them. We're there to help them, manage teams and all that. Because a lot of business owners, never managed staff before.
Exactly.
And this is this
all
whole
new, isn't it? It's all new
all
skills
new.
and
Yeah.
going without.
Yeah. So I think, and I get where a lot of, small business owners go, yeah, but cash flow is an issue and stuff like that. And I get that. But it's how long do you want to just keep spinning your wheels, and how long do you want to, spending time and energy, as I said before, fixing stuff, or just have one conversation. Maybe you're not, coaching with me all the time, but you coach with me intermittently, go, I just need to talk about these stuff. Great.
Yeah.
And that gets you enough. And then you can move on and stuff like that. So, I very much value that. So you've got to invest in yourself as the best resource, as well as then, other things like, what's your exercise and diet, and, can you shut yourself off? Like, I'm really good. I don't look at emails, all the time and things like that. My phone, I've got boundaries and stuff around that. But you learn that along the way. I did in the beginning.
I think my ADHD brain struggles with that, but it's a learning process. It's like it's one of those things where you have to do it, or you know how to do it, but actually going ahead and doing it sometimes can be a bit of a challenge. So
and it's that first step in all those, things that we could throw up, how do we do elephant one piece at a time and all that. But for me, a lot of times you just have to talk to someone and go, ugh. I mean, when I presented to audiences, most people go, yeah, I've got that same, we're all in the same boat. We're just in different parts of the journey and stuff like that. So put yourself in places where you can feel supported as part of that, where you're seeing what other people are doing, but you still have to put some time aside for your own professional development. Otherwise you will be left behind. That's just reality, unfortunately. Yeah.
I definitely agree. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Tamara. I would love for you to share how people can reach out to you if they are looking for support with their small business and feel like they're really vibing with you from today's chat. How can we contact you?
Yeah, so the best place is to head to my website. So that's tamarasimon.com.au. So you'll see up in the top right-hand corner of each page, you can book a chat with me. Let's see if we can, at least fix, one of those challenges that you go, oh my goodness. You can head to my book page. You can download the first 3 chapters for free. You can also buy the book there. And if people are looking, if you've got audience listeners that are looking for a speaker, then my speaker page has got videos and my speaker kit and stuff like that. And I've also got a freebies page. So previous webinars that I've done, a lot of my podcast interviews. So once we've got that will go up there as well. So there's lots of things that you can grab from the website. But as I said, the best way is book a chat with me. Let's have a chat, make sure we can get you moving again if that's where you're at.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tamara.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks so much.